Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Universe Altering. Today we're going to be looking at issues 4 through 7 of Forever Evil. So last we left off, the Crime Syndicate has taken control over the planet, and now it's up to Lex Luthor to take it back. He's teaming up with Black Manta, Bizarro, Black Adam, and Captain Cold in order to do something while the rest of the heroes are incapacitated. In the last issue we saw Ultraman, the evil doppelganger of Superman, battling Black Adam, and even though Ultraman ultimately won, he was weakened, and since he's the opposite of Superman, he now needs more kryptonite to get stronger. We also see that Batman and Catwoman are still alive, and they just recently got Cyborg to safety after he was horribly injured. As we see by the cover, Lex Luthor and Batman are quickly going to cross paths. So this issue opens with Batman bringing Catwoman to the Batcave in order to find some plan that they can use against the Crime Syndicate. They can't use any technology because Grid has hacked into all of the computer systems across the world, so they're going to have to use the contingency plans that Batman has been collecting against his teammates for a long time now. It's obviously a running joke that Batman has a contingency for everybody, whether that be friend or foe, and we see a little bit of that here. He has a kryptonite ring, and he has a lightning rod from the future to handle Superman and the Flash respectively, and he also has a mother box and a yellow lantern ring. Now this was interesting to me because I know that Batman has worn a yellow lantern ring in the comics before, and he actually references that event in this panel. But isn't the New 52 supposed to be a complete reboot? So after a little bit of research, I learned that the Batman and Green Lantern books were so popular at the time that even though they were rebooting the entire universe, they wanted to keep their continuities. So essentially, all of the things that were happening in their books were condensed into a 5-year timeline within the universe. Even though that doesn't really make much sense from a continuity perspective, it still allows for some cool references like this. At the same time, we're seeing that Lex is helping heal Black Adam, who had his jaw broken by Ultraman in the last issue. This book has quite a few characters to jump around from. So we see that Ultraman is in pursuit of kryptonite, where he eventually finds Metallo and just rips out his kryptonite heart so he can inhale it. Superwoman finds him while he's doing this, and in a weird moment, she's pitting him against Owlman. She's trying to convince Ultraman that the child she has is his, and that Owlman is preparing a retaliation against them in some capacity. Then we cut back to Lex and crew, who are in pursuit of one more piece of technology before they go after the Crime Syndicate. This leads them to a Wayne Enterprises storage facility, which obviously means they're going to come in contact with Batman and Catwoman. It seems like they're immediately going to fight, but before they even can, Power Ring shows up with a gang of his own villains. Batman wastes no time, and he puts on the yellow lantern ring in this awesome panel, but he doesn't get to do much because the lantern ring doesn't have much power. Fortunately for him, the leader of the Yellow Lantern Corps, Sinestro himself, arrives and he's ready to wreak havoc. So just as the cover of issue 5 promises, we're going to see Batman and Catwoman and the villains teaming up so they could stop the Syndicate together. The issue kicks off with Power Ring cowardly running away from Sinestro, as we see the other heroes and villains engaging in battle. For a brief moment, it looks like Lex is about to fire at Batman, but then he fires at one of the villains, Copperhead, and it's clear that they're on the same side. So throughout the issue, we jump back and forth between these two fights. We see Power Ring is still cowering in fear, but he gets a pep talk from his evil sentient ring, and then he decides he's actually going to fight back. Even in a moment that's seemingly of bravery for this alternate Hal Jordan, he doesn't really understand what he's dealing with. Sinestro easily grabs him and summons a construct to cut off his arm. As the ring goes to find a new host, Sinestro just uses his ring to atomize this evil Hal Jordan's body. As you're reading these books, you can clearly see that the ring is sentient and that it hates its host. But not only that, it was attracted to the most fearful host. So when it encourages this evil version of Hal to not be afraid, it's almost like, to me at least, it wants him to die so he could just find somebody else. So going back to Lex Luthor's group, they have some powerhouses, so they're easily able to dispatch the group of villains that come to attack them. He even convinces Deathstroke to back off by convincing him that if the Crime Syndicate takes over, then there will be no more jobs for a hitman. The issue concludes with the Crime Syndicate learning that Power Ring is dead. However, they don't really care about his death. When the ring flew off to find another host, it sent out a beacon. And it turns out that the Crime Syndicate didn't come to this Earth simply to take over. They were in fact running from something. and that beacon that the ring sent out has told the creature that destroyed their world where to find them. The cover of issue 6 has a bloodied up Nightwing, and we almost immediately see why. Batman, Lex, and their group of villains go into the Crime Syndicate's lair, and they find Nightwing in a murder machine. Basically, if they try to remove him, there's a bomb that's going to go off. The only way to stop it is to stop Nightwing's heart, which is obviously an unacceptable conclusion for Batman, but Lex Luthor doesn't really give a damn. He immediately attacks Batman, and he does what it takes to stop Nightwing's heart. At the same time, some of the villains split off, and Black Manta and Captain Cold go off together. Manta finds the Outsider, the alternate version of Alfred, and just brutally stabs him to death. But even more interestingly than that, they find another prisoner that the Crime Syndicate has restrained. They remove the bag from his head and the tape from his mouth, but before the prisoner has a chance to speak, Johnny Quick and Atomica come into the battle. It's obviously very dangerous for a normal human versus a speedster, but Captain Cold outsmarts Johnny Quick by using voice activation on his cold gun. Cold freezes Johnny Quick's legs off, and then he just snaps it in two. Atomica is obviously distraught because that's her lover, but she has even greater concerns. Their prisoner is now free, and he can speak, and they're all deathly afraid. The first thing he does is call down the lightning of Mazaz, which is obviously Shazam backwards. All of the other heroes and villains who are fighting in various parts of the facility, they just stop and they watch the dark lightning come down, and their greatest fears are realized before their eyes. In the final panel, it's revealed that this prisoner is actually Lex Luthor from Earth 3, and he has the power of Mazaz. He snaps Johnny Quick's neck to make sure that he's dead, and then he steals his powers, and he claims he's going to kill all of them and do the same. By the cover of issue 7, we see it's an all-out showdown for who's going to be the victor. It kicks off with Batman furiously beating and choking Lex Luthor, who he believes just killed Nightwing. However, Lex just gives Nightwing a bit of adrenaline and restarts his heart. Meanwhile, Deathstorm and Ultraman are conversing in fear about what they're going to do about Mazaz, when he flies down with Superwoman. Superwoman reveals that the child in her stomach is not that of Ultraman or Owlman, but it's actually the child of Mazaz, because he was the strongest, and he was the most capable of protecting their child. Ultraman and Mazaz immediately try to kill each other, and it's revealed that at some point Ultraman was stronger than him, but Mazaz calls down the power of the people that he's killed, and he's able to easily knock Ultraman out. Deathstorm is then incapacitated by Superwoman, so Mazaz just grabs his head, kills him, and then absorbs his nuclear power, and now it seems like he's damn near unstoppable. It's very clear that this guy is going to kill them all, so Lex Luthor quickly devises a plan. If he can get Black Adam to call down the lightning of Shazam, then it should be able to transform Mazaz back to human. Before they can do that though, Mazaz gets his hands on Bizarro, and realizing that he has powers, he kills him and absorbs it. Lex knows that Bizarro is just a clone, but clearly he forms an attachment to him in the short time that they were together, and he's furious at his death. So Sinestro and Black Adam get in close to Mazaz, and Sinestro uses a construct to fix Black Adam's jaw momentarily so he can call down the word Shazam. Unfortunately, the lightning does absolutely nothing to Mazaz. Now that they've played their big card, Mazaz immediately goes after Lex, and he's just furiously beating on him. But Lex comes up with an even better plan. He realizes that being Alexander Luthor's exact clone from another Earth, he has the same exact voice as him. So he personally calls down the lightning of Mazaz himself, and it strikes him, turning him back into a human. In a great moment, Lex Luthor simply tells his doppelganger that while he may not be as strong as him, he will always be smarter than him. You might have noticed that I haven't talked much about the actual Justice League and what was happening with them in this book. That's because they're not the crux of this book. In this same issue, Batman and Catwoman team up with Cyborg, and they're able to go rescue the Justice League, who was trapped in Firestorm's Matrix, and it only comes into play at the end of the issue. When Ultraman attacks Luthor, at the same time, the heroes move the moon from in front of the sun, and now the sunlight is directly beaming on Ultraman, making him weak and brittle. He actually begs Luthor to kill him, but naturally, Luthor refuses, instead opting to watch him suffer. Amidst all the wreckage, he does find Atomica though, and understanding that she was the one that started all of this, he just crushes her under his boot. So, as all good conclusions do, This issue wraps up the events of Forever Evil while setting some things up for the future. Lex Luthor removes that bit of kryptonite that Atomica put in his brain back in Trinity War, while Ultraman and Superwoman are imprisoned. With the reveal of Nightwing actually being Dick Grayson, Lex Luthor is able to piece it together that Bruce Wayne is Batman. But even bigger than that is the reveal of who the Crime Syndicate was running from in the first place. The Justice League immediately believes that it's Darkseid, the villain that they had to fight that united them all those years ago. But it turns out it's actually the Anti-Monitor, who has been consuming universes in order to gain enough power to face Darkseid. As far as events and crossovers go, I had so much fun reading this one, and it was probably the perfect event to get back into comics with. Usually, crossover events can get bogged down in so many issues that it feels impossible to really attach yourself to the storylines. And don't get me wrong, this series had a total of 77 crossover issues, way too much. But as I mentioned in the last video, I stuck mostly to Rogue's Rebellion, the main Justice League book, and then this crossover book. In each of those titles, we get a lot of added context, particularly in the Justice League book, where we get some of the background of the Crime Syndicate. It isn't absolutely necessary reading, but it definitely fleshes out your understanding of the villains and their motivations and what might come in the future. For example, it's in the main Justice League book that we find out what happens to the Ring of Volthoom, the ring that was attached to Power Ring. And of course, if you wanted the main fallout from this event, you would just continue reading the main Justice League book, which from my understanding you could read pretty much through to the end and have a perfect understanding. I think for the future of this channel, I want to stay in series or books that are relatively self-contained. Obviously, I do have the joy of the internet, so I can find out from other people and reviews what is actually good and what is a waste of time. But I want to stay in this smaller context because there's so many various interpretations of these characters, not just in comics, but in all of the media, and hopefully the DC universe will only get more popular. So I just think it's better for me and my enjoyment to stay in this smaller context and stay within a self-contained event if possible. But for now, this has been Universe Altering. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see y'all in the next one.